So what does an anesthesia machine do? So what is it used for? So we all know it's mainly to give anesthesia to the patients. So what does it actually do? It gives you a continuous supply of oxygen and nitrous oxide mixed with the anesthetic agents. Right, so this is given in a pressure with a different pressure and a flow to the patients. So what is the need of anesthesia? So why do I need anesthesia is mainly for two major functions. So when you do a surgery, you actually don't want the patient to feel uncomfortable. There shouldn't be any pain, right? So for that, we give them anesthesia. So along with that, what do we have? It's mainly for the surgeons. So if the pain is not reduced, if you feel pain, you're going to scream. So it's going to be tough for the doctors. So you give them anesthesia so that they can do their work preferably better, right? So as you know, like there have been instances wherein when they give anesthesia and they wake up in between, and all these cases have been found. So it's better to give anesthesia in the needed volume and pressure. So what are the types of anesthesia which is given? So we have local anesthesia, we have general anesthesia and regional anesthesia. So general anesthesia is nothing but through inhalation. So you send in gases through inhaling, wherein it gives that anesthetic effect to the patients. So local anesthesia is done when you are going for any minor surgeries, right? So minor cuts, you're going to put a stitcher somewhere, so you give it at that particular place so that you don't feel the pain. And then regional anesthesia is mainly during deliveries, or you're doing it something on a arm or a limb or something like that. So it's for a larger region. So local is for a smaller region, general is for the entire body, and your regional is for a particular region, not a small region, a bigger region. So that's the basic types of anesthesia we have. So this is a very simplified diagram of your anesthesia machine. So you have bigger ones if you look into your textbooks, right? So this is a smaller one wherein you can see we have a gas delivery system. As in over here, you can send in air, your nitrous oxide and your oxygen. So it goes into the ventilator. From the ventilator, it goes into the patient. So what are the components of an anesthesia machine? I think you will all know it better than me, right? So what are the components inside an anesthesia machine? What is inside the machine as well, right? So the major ones, what you have is the pipes, right? So you have pipes coming from the oxygen supply room to the ICU or to the operation theater, right? So you have pipes coming from everywhere, and you have the pipes coming into the patient as well, right? So you have tubes which will be connected to your patient. So apart from that, we have cylinders, right? So gas cylinders can be seen either in the place where you keep the cylinders, or inside the smaller one, the small cylinder ones which you see inside the theaters. And then we have pressure gauges and regulators. So as you can see a small gauge right on the yoke region of your cylinder, right? So that's mainly for to check out what is the pressure. As we said, we have to give it at a particular pressure. We have to have a particular flow. So everything has to be maintained. We cannot send it any kind of pressure into the patient. So apart from that, again, we have flow meters. So flow meters are again going to control the amount of oxygen or the air and the nitrous oxide which is going into your patient. And along with that, we'll have ventilators. So ventilators, as we all know, we're going to give air into the patient. So these air, which is your oxygen, nitrous oxide, your anesthetic agents, are being given through a ventilator into the subject, and we're going to administer it. And then again, we are, as usual, a multi-parameter monitoring devices. So you have to check the ECG, you have to check the heart rate, the blood pressure, everything has to be checked, right? So these are the major components of your anesthesia machine. So how do we deliver anesthesia to a patient? So again, as you can see, we have an anesthesia machine, we have a patient circuit, a ventilator, and an airway equipment. So patient circuit is nothing but the tubes which comes onto the subject or the patient, right? So through which all these gases go into the patient. So they have all these valves, the APL valves, which you can adjust it. CO2 absorber, so we would have seen it on the anesthesia machine with that soda line down, right? So which picks in the carbon dioxide, absorbs the entire carbon dioxide. And then a scavenging system, so whatever is being given out from the patient has to go back to the atmosphere. So we have a scavenging system which takes off these into the environment. And then we have a humidifier. So humidifier, humidity, as we all know, you're giving some wetness to the gases so that it doesn't dry up your entire nasal circuit. And a reservoir bag. So if the anesthesia, the ventilator doesn't work properly, we have a self-filling bag which you can press so that the air can go into the subject. So a ventilator basically gives you a positive pressure ventilation. So ventilation we talk about more in detail tomorrow, right? And the airway management equipment is nothing but the mask. So we all seen that we have a mask which will be placed on your nose and the tube which will be coming, right? So moving on to the first major part of your anesthesia system is your gas supply system, right? So we have a centralized gas supply system. So as we all know, we've all visited hospitals. So these gas supply systems can be seen somewhere either in the ground floor or the top floor. Usually you find it in the ground floor of a hospital, right? Wherein all these huge cylinders will be kept over there, and these will be connected through tubes into the respective places. So where do we see all these gases? It has to go to the it goes to the OT or the operation theater, or it goes to the ICU. So few cases it might be there in all these ICU beds or in some rooms as well. Right, so that's how you get the centralized supply. So you have color coded pipes which will be there. You'll have a yellow one, a blue one, a black. So according to whichever gas it has to go, it will be going from there. Other than that, we'll have small storage cylinders. So small storage cylinders, we've all seen those small ones which can be directly connected to your anesthesia machine, right? So centralized system is done. So I said we'll have valves over there. So you have particular valves on the uh, tubes which will be going to your OTs, right? So you'll have the pressure regulators, so small pressure valves which will be there, right? And then different outlets. So this is the major thing which you have to see. So every time the pressure has to go at only 275 to 345 kilopascals, right? So that has the pressure which has to be maintained. It should not go below that. It should not go above that. So when it goes to the patient, it will cause lots of other complications, right? So that's what it is. And then, as said, these are the major things you have to think about. The diameter index safety system called as the DISS, right? So DISS is nothing but those plug pins which you'll be having on the wall, right? So you have to connect only that particular cylinder. So if I'm going to have an oxygen cylinder, the oxygen cylinder can be connected only to a particular hole or that a particular system in there, right? So you have to connect it accordingly. Otherwise, you will not be able to fit it, or you shouldn't. It's mainly to make sure that it is a fail-proof system or a safe system. You should not connect your oxygen to your nitrous oxide or add to your oxygen, right? So this is what you'll have to check. So they're all basically non-interchangeable converters. So I said they have a male and a female end, so you will be connecting it accordingly, and they also color coded. So as we said, most of the cases we've seen in a hospital, we've seen them as a yellow tube, a blue tube, and a black tube. So again, we have gas cylinders, right? So gas cylinders, you usually see it in your right behind your anesthesia machine. You have that place. I think most of you would have tried putting it when we had our training, right? So these are utilized if the main supply system is getting faulty. So there might be chances that the main supply system might get faulty, right? You'll not be able to give the gases at the needed time. So you have to have a backup. So these gas cylinders are going to be a backup which will be at the back of your anesthesia machine, and it has a yoke. So yoke is nothing but you would have seen a small projection which would have come from the back of your anesthesia machine, and you have same a small hole on the gas cylinder. So you just take it and fix it and rotate that particular yoke region, the valve region over there, right? Again, you'll have one or two yokes at the back, right? So you'll have to give it accordingly. So there we have a DISS. Here it is a PISS system. So a pin index safety system. So again, you should not fit it wrongly. Nitrous oxide should not go into the oxygen wall. The oxygen should not go into the nitrous oxide wall. So, and then we have the pressure regulators. So as said, my pressure always has to be maintained at 275 kilopascals, right? So before it goes into the machine, this is the pressure which has to be maintained. So there again, you'll have different inlets and outlets. So as you can see, I have an inlet and outlet for high pressure and two pressure, low pressure outlets as well, right? So it also has a non-return valve. So non-return valve, the same way you have it at home on a pipe, right? So you don't let the water go back. So once you close it, it stops over there. So that's what is called as a non-return valve. So whatever the gas is going into the machine should not come back, right? So that's called as a non-return valve. So these are few pictures of your disc. So this is what your disc is, right? So diameter, index, FG system. So you'll be connecting the wires to the particular color. So which is for what you'll have to check. So this is for your nitrogen, for oxygen, so air, so everything. You have different ones for each one. And this one is your yoke part, right? So this is what will be at the back of your anesthesia machine. So you have to connect it accordingly. So this pin has to go directly into that yoke plug, and these are going to be my pressure regulators. So you have to maintain the pressure. So you have these knobs over here. So if there is an increase or a decrease, you can turn these knobs so that you can maintain your pressure. So same thing again, the pressure gauge as we said, and a fail-safe system. So fail-safe system. So why I need a fail-safe system is that I don't want my oxygen and my nitrous oxide to rush into together, right? So you want one after the other once the pressure has been maintained, right? So for that, what do you have? You have a fail-safe system. So what is there in that is actually a master regulator and a slave regulator. So master regulator is mainly for the oxygen supply, and you have the nitrous oxide which will be activated for your nitrous oxide. So as said, once that particular pressure of oxygen is reached, so let's say 275 kilopascals, right? So once that pressure is being reached, what happens? It will automatically turn over the flare regulator. So that time the nitrous oxide will also start flowing, and that goes into your anesthesia machine, right? So as given over here, you always have to maintain that ratio 25 to 75 and 30 is to 70. So that's how you'll be maintaining the quantity of your oxygen and your nitrous oxide. So this is your gas delivery unit. So now the gas is moved into your anesthesia machine. So oxygen, nitrous oxide is coming into your anesthesia machine. It has to be delivered. It has to be proportion. So as we said, 25 to 75 or 30 is to 70, right? So it has to be mixed or proportion, right? So you can have a gas proportioning system or you can have a gas mixing system. So as you can see over here, a gas proportioning system. So as we said, I need 70% of nitrous oxide and 30% of oxygen, right? So we have to give it accordingly. So the gas proportioning system will have a flow meter, right? So it will have a flow meter, a needle valve in that, so which mixes that particular quantity of your nitrous oxide and oxygen and then sends it into your machine where it mixes with the anesthetic agent and goes into the subject. So that's gas proportioning. So now what all the current anesthesia machines, they use a gas mixing system. So as you can see, it basically has a needle valve and a rotameter. Means you can turn on the gas off or on. So this is how it actually looks like, right? So a needle and a rotameter will look like this. So this is your needle valve, right? And this will be your rotameter. So next is your vapor delivery, right? So as we have already said, I'm going to send in the oxygen, the nitrous oxide is come inside, right? So through the gas system, and it is now proportioned or mixed. So that 70% of nitrous oxide and 30% of oxygen has been mixed. So now what is the next thing I have to mix into it, right? So I'll have to mix in my anesthetic agent, right? So as we all know, we've heard of lots of anesthetic agents, right? So now commercially they use few things which will be attached to your anesthesia machine, right? So normal common things we all know is either your chloroform and all that which you keep on, and a person feels dizzy or they become unconscious, right? So liquid, so we're taking it as a liquid. Again, lots of cases where when you give too much amount of chloroform, the person dies or they go into coma and all that, right? So we need to know how it has to be given. So you add in, as in movies, you see you add in so much of chloroform and then keep it on your nose, it leads to some other things, right? So that's what it's given. When it is in a liquid form, it is very, very strong, right? So you cannot just add in that liquid into the gas or just inhale it just like that, because it's not going to solve a purpose. Because when you do a surgery, whichever kind of surgery it is, right, so you need that person to be unconscious for a particular period of time. So that's why we have a anesthetist. He'll always be there. He's the one who will be taking care of this entire program, right? So it's going to be a surgery which is going to go for a longer period of time, like a heart transplant or things like that. We'll have to give him that much amount of agents to it, right? So if you're going to go for a minor one, some kind of smaller surgeries which is going to happen, so it is going to go for only 1 or 2 hours. So you have to give the agents accordingly, right? So as said, I cannot give it as a strong liquid. So what do I have to do? It has to be diluted into this oxygen and nitrous oxide, right? Or air or oxygen, whichever we're going to take. So mostly it is oxygen and nitrous oxide, right? So what does a vaporizer do? It vaporizes this anesthetic agent. So it tries to make it into a vapor. This vapor actually fixes or mixes in with the gases, and then it goes on to the subject, right? So that's what is happening. So you have a flow meter control, calibration control as well. So mainly how do you do it is that the gases will be down, right? So from down the heat will be given. So this starts vaporizing. So the gas will start vaporizing and start mixing with the paint. Or you boil it. So when you boil it, the vapors start coming. Boiling in the sense there will be a heater kind of structure inside an anesthetic machine, right? So it will heat this anesthetic liquid, and which becomes vapor, and it goes into the patient. So next is your patient delivery system. So our gases come from the cylinder room, right? It gets into the gas proportioning system. It's already mixed now, and my vapor delivery is also happened, right? I'm going to mix in the vapor into the anesthetic agent into the gases. So that's done. So till that portion is done, this is happening inside the uh, machine, right? So next is your patient delivery. So we have tubes which will be coming, and you have a mask on the patient, right? So this will be coming through the tubes and going into the patient. So that's what is a patient breathing system, right? So it takes in that anesthetic agent into the patient, and whatever I'm exhaling will be taken out and going into the atmosphere, right? So that's how it is done. So we have two different types over here, a rebreathing system and a non-rebreathing system. So rebreathing, as you all see, right, everything is coming and going, right? So you breathe in and breathe out, the whole thing is going and coming into your body. So non-breathing system is that you have only a fresh supply which is going to come into the patient, and whatever is being exhaled will not be again going back into the patient. So usually again we want to prefer a non-breathing system. I think we are moving on to the end of the anesthesia. So next one is in humidification. So humidification, so humidity. We all know what humidity is. You start sweating is basically humidity, right? So why do I need humidification in a anesthesia machine, right? So as said, we are going to give in gases into the body, right? So if there is no fluid or no liquid which is going to go into my nose, what happens is that the entire system starts drying up, right? So you have too much of gases and this anesthetic agent which is going into my body, right? So when that happens, my nose, my mouth, my esophagus, everything is going to get dried up. So when you start, it gets dried up, obviously you're going to cough, or some other reaction is going to come. So you don't want that to happen. So what do you have to do? You have to humidify the gases. So I have oxygen, nitrous oxide, and the agents coming through the tube into my nose or my mouth, right? So while it is coming itself, what do you have there? I'll have a humidification chamber over there, wherein it is going to give some vapors or liquid into it, right? So that's how you do it, heated airway humidifier. So you'll have water or some kind of fluid which will be there, which will be heated. So these droplets will come like as in your nebulizer. So you'll have gas jet of water which will be sprinkled into the gases. So when it goes into your nose, what happens then? There'll be some liquid which will be going. So it doesn't make your entire system dry. That's why you have your humidification for. And the last part of it is a ventilator. So as we've all seen, ventilators are actually part of anesthesia machine. So every anesthesia machine will have a ventilator. So why do I need a ventilator in anesthesia machine? Obviously you are unconscious, right? So you have to breathe and giving this gases and all that. So all that is done using a ventilator. So whatever is the required oxygen needed for us taking out the carbon dioxide, the entire part will be taken up by your ventilator, right? So it can be a part of your mainframe unit. So few anesthetic machines are there wherein the ventilators are inside or part of that particular frame itself. Otherwise, it can be an accessory unit. So you keep the ventilator beside your anesthesia machine, and then you will be using it. And then we have a patient circuit. So patient circuit is nothing but those mask and the tube which is going to come out from the machine into the patient. So as you can see, I'll have a tube which is going to come from there, right? A rebreathing bag, so you'll have that green color bag which will be there. So whatever exhale will be going over there, and a face mask. So T-joint is something I think this corona we are all hearing of different types of ventilators being made and all that, right? So you'll have a T thing which will have two tubes which will be coming out from here. So it will be a T-shaped structure. So tube, so one for the inhalation, one for the expiration, right? So yeah, that's about my anesthesia machine, right? So moving on to the next one is chemotherapy. So that comes in your radiological things, right? So it's a therapy. So chemotherapy again, we all keep hearing about chemotherapy through the days, right? So it's becoming a very common thing. Cancer is becoming a very common disease, like before we used to be scared of cancer and now we're scared of corona, right? So cancer is a very fatal disease, right? So even if we get cured, it leads to some other problems, right? So what happens is that you have to treat them. So how do you treat cancer? So the first thing which they usually do is go for a surgery if there is a growth, right? So once your growth is being removed, they start doing your chemotherapy. So I said we cancer. So what is cancer? So we all know it's an abnormal growth of your cells, right? So it's an abnormal growth of your cells. So we have few cells in our body, right? So which grows in a normal way. So for us, we are all normal, right? So few cases, what happens is that because of because of your habits, the kind of food we eat, maybe some genetical reasons. All these are reasons for cancer. Every type of cancer. So as we've been hearing, n number of types of cancers are there from top to bottom. Every part is getting infected, right? So each organ or each part of your body, they call it as some kind of cancer, right? So what actually happens? All those cells will start growing and form a tumor or a bulk, right? So it starts affecting your different tissues, organs. It crawls into different organs. So first they say the cancer is in one part of your body, and then they say it's moved to some other part. The virus will start moving to some other region and starts growing. So how do we overcome that? So one of the major thing which we do is go for chemotherapy. So what happens in chemotherapy? So actually we have two ways in doing it. We can do chemotherapy or they go for radiation therapy. So I think we've all done our LINAC and all that, so we all know what radiation therapy is. So in chemotherapy, so what do you do in chemotherapy? You just inject some anti-neoplastic agents. So anti-neoplastic agents are nothing but your chemo drugs, right? So there are there are a number of medicines which are available for each particular type of cancer, right? So each organ is getting affected in a different way. So what do? They go and bind with these particular cancer cells and starts killing them. So that's what actually happens during a chemotherapy. So if there is a cancer in your throat or on the breast or whichever it is, you remove that particular tumor, and once it has been removed, you start giving the chemo. So if there are any remaining part of that cancer cell which is there inside your body, what happens? These agents will go and start binding with that particular cancer cells, and they will start killing them. It's literally killing them. That's what we're going to do, right? So as said, it is a systemic treatment. So systemic treatment is in the sense it actually passes through your entire body. It's not going to go exactly to a particular region and start doing it. So if there are cancers, it starts eating it. So unlike surgery or radiation, so radiation therapy, if you're going for, you're going to let the radiation go and hit on that particular region alone, right? Surgery, I'm going to remove the tumor from that particular region, right? So that's what is happening. So this is one important slide actually, goals of chemotherapy. So what are the goals of chemotherapy? So one is cure, right? So anybody in the family or whoever gets affected with cancer, your first thing is to somehow cure them. You want to take them out of that disease, right? So here, when you cure a person, when you give chemotherapy to a person, when you cure a person, what happens is that the cancer will disappear. So there are lots of lucky people like that, wherein you give treatment to them and they are lucky at least for few years. So unlike all our deaths which happened recently in our film fraternity, so they all got treated and they were all well, and then they come back and it relapses, right? So most of the cases it relapses. So and then you have the control. So CCP. So that's how you try to remember it. So we have a control. So what do? You stop the cancer from growing and spreading. So as we said, when you go for a treatment, you go for a cancer in one part of your body, and then you say it spreads to some other part of your body. So one more thing you can do is try to control it. Maybe you will not be able to cure it. Few people live with cancers as well, right? So you'll not be able to cure it. So what do? You try to control it and make sure that cancer is there in a particular region and try to increase the lifespan of that particular person, right? And then we have the palliation. So palliation is the condition wherein it happens when they are in the last stages. So you have different stages of cancer, right? So stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So the end of cancer and all, what you can do is you cannot control anything, you cannot cure anything. So what you can only do is try to give them some medicine so that they don't feel much of pain. It is written that yes, it is the end. There is no solution for them. But till that end of their life, you have to give them some kind of treatment, right? So what is, you try to remove the to improve the QOL. So QOL is nothing but your what do you say, your quality of living. So what is the goal of chemotherapy, right? So again, as we said, my main role of chemotherapy is to go and bind with a particular cell and prevent it from multiplying, right? So you don't want it to happen and not destroy the other cells also, right? So you have to go and hit on only the virus cells and then start killing them. So this is also an important side of potential patient response. So what is the response of the patient, right? So a complete response, or called, as you call as a CR, right? So as we said, it's completely cured. So you go in for the chemotherapy, you have different sessions of chemotherapy. So you finish that chemotherapy sessions, right? And then if needed, you go for radiation and then you don't have the cancer coming up, right? So through years, you say that you're cured and you're fine, right? So partial response. So that is actually the control part. Actually, partial response and stable response are actually the control part. Wherein what happens is that the disease is there in your body, but you're not completely cured of the disease, right? So it is there. That's what it is. And again, the stable disease. So what is a stable disease is that again it is there going to be in your body, but through the years you can see it is stable, right? So it will be stable for through the years. And progressive disease. So progressive disease, what do you call a progressive disease? I said that's the last of the palliation one, right? So there is no cure, there is no control. It keeps on increasing. The cancer starts eating into the body, right? So there is no other way you can overcome it, right? So that's what it is. So your CR, PR, ST, and your PD. So these are important things which you need to know about your chemotherapy. So again, your chemotherapeutic agents. So what do they do? So they're going to be cell cycle specific. So S phase, M phase, and all is the growth of your cycle, right? So your mitosis, your cell cycle, right? So it affects the S phase and some of the M phase. So minimal concentration you're going to give. So it goes and hits and only on the S phase or the M phase, right? And then you have a non-specific one. So it is given as an injection and there is not going to be any particular organ it's going to go and hit, right? It's going to go and bind to any cancerous cells which is going to be there. And then you have a combination of specific and your non-specific, right? So it's given for a period of time. So what are the factors you have to consider when you're going to give a chemo, right? So what type of cancer it is, right? So as we said, from head to toe, we have a number of cancers which is happening, right? So you have to check out what is the type of cancer. And then the stage of cancer. So as we said, there are lots of stages, stage 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So you have to check what kind of cancer is it. And according to that, you'll have to give that many chemo treatments. And patient's age. So it's going to be a kid, it's going to be an older person, a mid person, and all that. You'll have to check for that. And then the general state of health. So what are the other problems that particular person will be having? So what other problems is going to be there, right? So let's say he has some other disease along with cancer. So it's going to affect you in a different way. And any anti-cancer treatment is taken in the past. So if he has another round of cancer which has happened before, what has been done? So how do you administer chemo? So how is it given, right? So orally. So you can take it as medicines, right? So there are medicines available. So few cases they ask you to take the medicines. Topical. So topical is mainly for skin cancers, right? So it's basically an ointment or something like that, which you'll be applying on the person. And then we have the IV. So you given the IV and you're giving it through that. So through IV only all these things are the lesional arterial. So lesion is nothing but you give it through a lesion, right? So if there is some growth or some lesion or cut or something like that, you can give it like that. Artery, through your arterial artery, you'll be giving it. Intrathecal. So intrathecal is nothing but through your spine. give it directly into your spinal region. So that's basically intrathecal. Intrapleural, so pleural cavity, we all know it's there on your lung, right? So that's basically your intrapleural cavity. Intraperitoneal, that's on your stomach. So you have the peritoneal cavity, you give the chemo directly over there, and the intravesical is mainly for your urinary bladder, right? So you send in the agents directly into the bladder region. That's what the methods you have. So this is just a picture of a person who is undergoing a chemotherapy. So you have a port. Same way we had to dialysis, there will be a port which will be given. Through the port, they'll be sending in the chemo thing. So you'll be there for a period of time. So the patient will be there. It's not like you just get a shot or an injection and then go home. So that doesn't actually happen, right? So you'll be there for the treatment. That entire thing has to go into your body. Then you'll have to wait for, it will be very tiring. So you'll have to overcome that. So side effects, I think most of us would have heard of all these side effects, right? So what happens when a person undergoes chemotherapy, right? So most of the cells are getting affected, right? So it's mainly with the blood cells which is getting affected. The bone marrow, the mouth, the stomach, everything is getting affected. So again, side effects. So as you can see, people who have done with their chemo, they'll be having bad dizziness. They'll want to rest, right? So the blood pressure reduces. There might be chances of getting a heart attack, right? So respiration problems. So mainly with our hair. So we have all heard they lose hair. That's the main symptom we all know, right? So they start losing their hair and all that. So you'll have to take care of this entire thing. So if you ask me, if you're a bit healthy with a cancer, I think you can happily overcome it, right? And the kind of food and stuff we eat, right? So all that will also after the chemo we're talking about, not before that. So before that is what we get all these kind of diseases, right? So after that, if you're going to maintain a very good healthy lifestyle, I think it will help them in all cases. So back to the side effects. So it's anemia, right? So what happens is that obviously the red blood cells starts reducing, right? So as we all know, it's been produced from the bone marrow. So if somebody's got a blood cancer, right? So the treatment is done with the bone marrow. So that will be a problem. So there will be a reduction. So as you can see, for a chemo person, the amount of red blood cells will be comparatively lesser. And these are skin abrasions which usually happen when somebody gets chemo, right? So they might the gums will start bleeding, so you have all these kind of small blisters and stuff which will be coming on the body, right? So when they pass urine or stool, there will be some blood and all that. So this is also one kind of side effects. So these are nothing but abrasions which happen in the mouth, right? So when you have a chemo, these are all sensitive regions, right? So they're very thin skin and all that, right? So what happens is that when you brush your teeth and all, it starts to abrade, right? So you'll have to use go for small as given soft brushes, not use any kind of mouthwash and stuff like that. You'll have to be very, very careful. And then the last one is your alopecia, which is basically nothing but your hair loss. So that's a very common thing we always hear and we always see also. If you look into lots of websites or any pictures of person with chemo, and if you talk to a herd of people talking who had cancer and all, once they go for chemo, the next thing within a week, the first session of chemo is done within a week or two. What happens is that they start losing their hair. So most of the cases, what they do is like they start shaving off, right? So you don't want to see your hair coming out one by one. So what they do is like they start shaving off and they try to wear a wig and all that. But it is a reversible process. So just because they have a chemo and they lose hair doesn't mean that their hair is not going to come, right? So after a period of time, once your chemo is done and everything is settled, the hair will start regrowing back, right? So that's it for today.